Greetings everyone. Another nice little kit. This is the Airfix 172nd Curtiss P40B Warhawk. Interestingly, it's not mentioned on the box, but this is the 6th Pursuit Squadron, and you'll see there December 7, 1941, which most of you, I assume, know is an important date because that was the attack on Pearl Harbor by the Japanese. So for some reason, Airfix doesn't have it on the box. I don't quite know why. This is, I think a 2011 kit, so it's that softer plastic. So if you are working on this one, do be careful because it is very soft plastic. There was a period there with Airfix which for whatever reason it was really soft plastic, and I mean really soft. I assume most of you have come across this. The plastic has changed a bit since then, but yeah, just be careful if you come across this grey plastic. I've jumped straight in here. I'm not doing the undercarriage down. I'm going to do this in flight, and there's a bit of weathering at the end, so definitely stay tuned. Interestingly, this is a two-color prop, and it's essentially black on the front and grey on the rear. Instrument panel, nice little decal, easy enough to do. I use Mr. Mark Softener. There's a bunch of them out there. You take your pick. I come in, do a little bit of detail work on these, basically lower end budget 172nd. I don't do too much, but it's always nice to have a bit of a play and see what you can do. The figure in this case is really quite good, again, for what it is. I've been experimenting and having a play with the Vallejo game color. They are acrylics. I tend to use the acrylics for finishing, but these are nice little paints. So you've got that almost, I shouldn't say standard design, but the, what would you say, the cockpit is built onto the main wing and then it pushes up through the fuselage. I always use a lot of tape. Interestingly, there is a antenna which you have to cut off. I'm not quite sure why, maybe a different tooling. It's not too much cleanup. There's, I'd say, average, usual. It's a pretty nice kit. The fit is very good. There is a few Airfix kits which I wouldn't say the fit is great, but yeah, this one, no problems at all. It's actually a really nice little kit. Like I say, my big surprise is when I looked at it, and it sat in my stash for a while, I was thinking, well, why didn't they mention December 7, 1941? But who knows? I don't know much about marketing. So, yeah, like I say, it all goes together very nicely. I didn't have any fit troubles. The interesting thing I did get into, and this isn't a big one, which was almost a build order, and I was playing around with how I was going to do the propeller. So I've done the spinner, but there's still a bit there to do, and you're in this dilemma that if you put the cowling on here and you glue that on, you're basically locking the propeller in. So I decided just to ignore that step, and you'll see when you do it, or if you do it, what I'm getting at. That the way it's designed, you almost have to make that choice up front, whereas I wasn't too bothered, so I didn't lock the propeller in. I can always pull it off, which is handy if you're moving models around to be able to pull off bits and dismantle them. So like I say, this is all going together. I'm doing it in flight, so yeah, there's not a lot for me to deal with undercarriage and wheels and so on. The P40B, just out of interest, it was the first Warhawk that did see active service, obviously. If I keep harping on about December 7, you can sort of put it all together as to how and why that happened. Although, interestingly, it wasn't quite that clear cut, because some planes, and I'm trying to think of, some were trialled in European theatre before Pacific. But yeah, that's what I was mentioning about, you put that cowling on, and yeah, then you've basically got a choice of locking the propeller in or free floating it. I come back here, And I use rubber bands to get the dihedral of the wing and get that sitting properly. Again, not a big drama. Dark olive green. This is back in the days of USAAF, so everything's basically army green, olive green in that sense. So you can see really nice, straightforward paint job. Interestingly, what I have done is I've left the ailerons and the rudder section off, and the reason for that was just to make painting easier. I've used masking tape. I just used the cheap, what would you say, $2 shop newsagents masking tape for a lot of that. For detail work, I definitely do use something like Specialist Tamiya tape, but for this type of large scale or block masking, yeah, you don't need anything super fancy. The only thing I'd say is you actually want the cheaper tape, because I noticed that if you get the good tapes, they're less useful from a modeling point of view because they're more adhesive. You actually do want the cheap ones. Underneath is just that standard grey. Masking comes off, always a really nice feeling or fun thing to do when you pull the masking off. When it goes well, that is. So yeah, that would be my advice. Just get the cheapest tape you can. And so here I am putting on the rudder, and by doing it that way, essentially assemble, but then I glue everything later. Just saved a bit of masking and a few problems. Now I'm coming back to do the walkway black, and this is what I was saying, for saying like the detail, definitely I'll use more Specialist tape. So this is 2mm Tamiya, but where it's less critical, so on the outboard of the wing, just normal tape. I'm using flat black. Again, I use lacquers 95% of the time. I always kind of do a test spray on the edge, like you can see there. It all comes up nice. Again, pretty sweet when you take off the masking and it all goes well. So at this point, we're really moving along in the build. There's, like I say, if you're doing this one, you will enjoy it. I have my favorite for doing the tires. I think everyone sort of develops their own little quirks and favorites. In my case, I'm quite partial to the MIG ammo rubber. Yeah, I think it is called rubber and tires. What I've done is just do half the wheel at a time, and then I can come back, because the hole or the axle hole does not go all the way through, and you'll see why the way the wheels are mounted. Masking the canopy, nothing surprising there. It's just one of those tedious things that if you do planes, you've got to live with and work your way through it. I think I used 1mm tape. A bit of a touch up. Again, I think that's one thing that comes with experience. Don't be afraid to do a little bit of touch up. As mentioned, the undercarriage, I've done it in the up position, so you can see these are half wheels. It's quite a clever or interesting way Airfix has done it, and it does look pretty neat. I think, yeah, it's just one of those ones that did have me thinking for a second. Again, here's my trusty MIG. The nice thing about using what was I going to say, the lacquers, is I can almost build up with my base coats are always going to be lacquers, and then I can come with acrylics over the top, and I won't mess things up. So just before, for example, you saw the detail gunmetal for the guns. I've used, I think this is burnt iron for the exhausts. At this point, I do get wary of messing up my paint job. So what I've done is I essentially rub the exhaust on the brush of the paint, just to be super careful that I don't mess it up. Never really quite understood what these are, so if you do know the point of these window sections on a P40, let me know in the comments. And like I say, always do give me your feedback. I do want to know what people think. I like hearing and learning. In this case, like I said, I've never known what the purpose of those windows on P40 are. So definitely hit me up in the comments. Okay, on to decals. Decals, as usual, pretty nice. No great issues at all. And this is where I personally always like this part. This is where you can be a bit creative if everything's going well. And these are essentially pre-war scheme. So just to recap on what we're doing here, it's the 6th Pursuit Squadron, 18th Pursuit Group, Wheeler Field, Oahu, Hawaii, December 7, 1941, U.S. Army Air Force. So 18P for Pursuit. So this is a really nice little kit, and I think they retail at $15 or something, $10 US or whatever that works out overseas. So I think one of the things that is interesting and probably I like to emphasize is that even with these cheap kits, you can get, I keep saying cheap, but lower end kits, you can get a really nice finished product, especially if you take your time. I don't like that idea that you must spend a lot of money to get some outstanding or fantastic result. So here's a bit of weathering, just light weathering. This is, to all intents and purposes, pre-war at this point. So just some exercise firing. What I'm using is Abteilung, and it's the Starship Filth. It's just I can't remember where I come across it, someone else's video. But it's just a really nice handy color. So I dab that on and then brush it out. You can see here, I don't like heavy weathering, but in this case, I think, well, what would I say? Used weathering. It's used. This has been a plane that's been flown daily, practically. It's not beaten up, but yeah. Another one I do use is just some of the Tamiya ready-made, which in this case I do use oils at times, but if I just want to give an indication, it does the job. Since I was happy with this, I went to town and did the extra step and added some rigging. This stuff is like spider's web. You can use, if you don't have it, you can use cotton thread and paint it and so on. I've done that, especially on larger scale planes. The only thing that will happen is that it will sag over time. Because I only had white, which is near enough clear in reality, I just come back with some black acrylic, I think Vallejo there, and did it. So there you go. That's the Curtiss P40B Warhawk. I hope you've enjoyed that. In the next episode, we'll be looking at a Corsair 132nd. So that's a big plane that'll be coming out next week. Do like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know how you're going. I definitely do want to hear from you in the comments. If you think there's things that I could improve or do better, definitely let me know. I welcome the feedback. Have a great day wherever you are, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks again.